And 99.9% of couples out there do not have financial agreements in place. It's unspoken, it's silent, it's assumed. And then they sit with me and I ask questions, and then they say, I just assumed that he'd do it, or I assumed she'd do it, or assumptions are made because one person earns more than the other. And it's not uncommon to find that as the relationship evolves, like if you have a gentleman and a lady, she may tend to start earning more, yet the guy is stuck with all the bills because that was the expectation. And on the back end, he's building resentment. He comes to me and he says to me, Nikki, I can't handle this financial stress anymore. She earns more. I'm the one sitting with all the bills. And I say to him, why are you communicating this to me? Have you communicated this to her? No, I don't know how to communicate it to her. I need you. Now, I'm certainly not going to be his mouthpiece, right? But therein begins our journey of money coaching. Especially if they're most successful in their family, amongst their siblings, or within their peer group of friends, they actually feel guilty for earning what they do. Right? Because others around them may not have as much as what they do, so they actually carry a great deal of money guilt. And that goes on deeper into aspects such as self-worth, deservability, etc. Because why is it that they have more than what others do while others are out there struggling?
I think in our black community, that's what we call black tax.
Yes, that is what we call black tax. That's actually quite true. So that's a good example of black tax. Maybe let me use that black tax as an opening to the next pattern, being overgiving. That is why you find a lot of people out there who overgive, right? Black tax already brings in that silent expectation that you need to give when you have, right? And that's the reason why you find a lot of people end up overgiving.
And not just only overgiving, some end up in difficult financial situations because they carry the weight and all of that.
They overextend themselves financially, whether it's taking out student loans for siblings, whether it's taking on credit card debt, whether it's buying vehicles for family members, etc. Those are some examples how people overextend themselves by overgiving.
Nikki.
Hi, Peter.
Thank you so much for coming and joining me on the show. I am so excited that you're here. I think even before the cameras were rolling, I had already told you that I'm so excited for this conversation. I can't wait because we are talking money, you know?
Yes.
And here's the thing, Nikki. Everyone wants to make money. Everyone wants to have a better relationship with money. I myself want to have a better relationship with money. And I'm sitting with someone that can give me the ropes. So I am very excited. I'm very honored that you're here. I would like to say thank you so much for honoring me with your time. I don't take that lightly. I would like for you to introduce yourself so people can understand the caliber of someone that I have here on studio today.
Firstly, Peter, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me over. Quite a privilege for me to be able here to share my story with others on air. So, hi everyone, I'm Nikki Gajoo Freelinghouse. I'm a certified financial planner, a certified money coach, and a business and executive coach.
Wow. And, you know, as you are introducing yourself, I have this question that's in my head. I want to take it back a bit. and you'll forgive me for this, but I want to know what was your relationship with money when you were growing up, if you remember?
Sure, I do recall and quite vividly. So, for the early years of my life, I'd say my relationship with money or what I experienced was absolutely fantastic. Whatever I asked for, I received. I never got a no. But as I grew older, when I was 14 years old, my dad unfortunately passed on. At that point in time, I was the oldest of 3 kids, and my mom then became the caregiver and a single parent at the young, tender age of 42, having to take care of me and my siblings. Now, although my dad had made financial provisions for myself, my mom, and my siblings, but it was at that point in time, and as I grew older, did I get the feeling that money was tight. You know, in the past, I asked and I received. Now, I asked and I was either given a response of, do you need it right now? Can it wait? Or sometimes an outright no. Now, this was really challenging for me coming from a scenario where I always got what I wanted. However, in spite of all of that, my mom was still able to educate me. She was able to pay for my university qualifications, my primary degree, my honors, my residence accommodation, and give me the kickstart that I needed to my life. And actually, you know, as I studied money coaching and as I grew older in life and I reflected back on those early childhood experiences, the 2 things that I learned from there is, firstly, irrespective of your gender, financial independence is really important. Now, my mom certainly did not plan to become a widow at the age of 42, right?
Oh, man.
So listen to me when I say this, ladies. A man is not your financial plan.
Please say that again.
A man is not your financial plan. Financial independence, irrespective of gender, is really important. And I also feel that coming from the background that I did, you know, having and then no longer sort of having and the struggle, actually built my resilience. And that also motivated me in terms of attaining my personal financial success and aspiring to be where I'm at right now.
Wow. That is so powerful. And I like the fact that we've clarified that a man, you know, because I know but just because you touched based on that, and just allow me to just derive a bit. Do you think being dependent on someone financially, especially, let's say in a couple, being dependent in a male figure in this case, do you think that's the main reason why we see a lot of abuse going on? Do you think that contributes to that in a way?
Most definitely. I mean, even if we take gender aside, right, and we look back at November each year where gender-based violence is actually acknowledged, you'll find that it's the dominant partner who's financially stronger, irrespective of whether you male or female, who controls a relationship. And where there's abuse, whether it's physical, financial, etc., a lot of people are unable to move away or escape or leave purely because of the financial dependency. And maybe earlier on, you know, I should have not said a man is a financial plan. It was more a sort of joke. But the reality is it depends on who's the dominant financial partner. So what I'm trying to get across here is even if you are in a couple, you should be able to hold your own financially.
Oh, that is powerful. Now, Nikki, you are a certified money coach, certified financial planner, and I'm trying to think what made you to go beyond money coaching to financial planning.
Okay, so actually, Peter, it started the other way around.
Yeah.
My initial practice is a wealth management practice,
Yeah.
and I'm a founder of the practice, and that is where I practice as a certified financial planner. So as we speak right now, what's happening is almost deja vu for me, and I feel like I'm coming full circle in my story, and let me explain to you why. So about 6 years ago, around about this time, towards the end of March, early April, globally, we went into the COVID-19 pandemic, right? And as a business owner, this impacted me very greatly in two ways. So the first one was, as a wealth management company, we worked with clients and we managed their investment portfolios. Now, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, markets had become volatile and clients became emotional and irrational, and they were looking at disinvesting or withdrawing or moving monies. Now, in financial planning, we are trained and taught that when markets are down, that's not the best time for you to disinvest. Markets will always rectify themselves. You've just got to be patient and you've got to stay the course. And that is what I advise my clients to do. But Peter, they were emotional, they were irrational, they were not willing to listen to what I was trying to tell them. And that in itself made me feel like an absolute failure, because some clients were disinvesting at a loss of about 60 to 80% of their initial investment value. For me, this was the greatest sense of failure. And also from a different perspective, as clients start moving monies out, and also as a result of no new clients coming in. This was impacting the practice financially, me, my livelihood, and that of the team. And that was when I found myself in a state of deep introspection, because here my income was being impacted, but also I felt that I wasn't doing my role justice, or my clients justice for that matter. So my deep introspection led me to the doorstep of the Money Coaching Institute in the USA. And that is where I actually studied my money coaching qualifications.
Wow.
So upon completion of my qualifications, I then set up my money coaching practice, Imali Coaching. And the aim of this practice is to assist clients around the cognitive behavioral aspects of money. So now, when I look back 6 years later, and we are now in the midst, or we are subject to what's happening in the Middle East in terms of the Middle East conflict, the similar pattern is happening. Clients on the wealth management side are in panic. They're fearful because of loss of their money. Even though it's early days and the markets have still not locked in the impact of the Middle East on their portfolios, but clients are emotional. They're panicking. But this time around, 6 years later, we've got a solution. We've got Imali Coaching that focuses on the cognitive behavioral sides of money, and we can explain to clients why they're feeling the way they're feeling. And also, as a double bonus, 6 years later, I've been able to diversify my businesses and diversify my revenue streams. So even if wealth management doesn't perform as a result of what's happening in the Middle East, hey, our money coaching business is going to reach great heights this year.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing. And you touched on something very important, which brings me to this question is, do you think when it comes to investments, people need to detach from emotions?
So easier said than done, right? They should be able to detach, because now I'll get into the technical aspect of money and put on a different cap, is when you work with clients, you often ask them what their investment goals are. So saving short-term, investment is long-term, and it's a minimum of 5 years or longer. So when you work with clients, you ask them to identify their financial goals that they are saving or investing towards. So it could be short-term goals, such as an overseas holiday, or it could be longer term goals such as kids' university education or retirement, etc. And the whole idea is the goal is linked to a time frame, right? So we always say to clients, if your goal, for example, is planning for retirement, and that's planning over a 30-year period. So we say to clients, you should be able to take in the volatility of the market when markets are low. Because you've got a 30-year time frame, markets will always rectify themselves. They may be low within the first 2 or 3 years that you're investing, but markets will certainly rectify themselves. So what we speak about here is two aspects. It's a time frame for investment that's linked to the goal. And if you've got time during which you need to invest, there's no need for you to panic, because the markets will rectify themselves within that time frame.
Sure. Why? Wow. Why do you think then a lot of South Africans they struggle with money even when they're earning well? You still see a lot of people struggling with their money management and finding themselves in like financial stresses and worries even when they're earning well. Why do you think is the cause of that?
Okay, so let's go back a bit. When I was in school, I was not taught about money or how to manage money. When I went on to university, I majored in financial management, and I was certainly not taught how to practically manage money. When I started my first job, I just started managing money as best as how I thought I knew how to manage money, right? So let's circle back to the question that you asked. Many of us are just the same, right? We're not taught about money in school. We're not taught about money at university. And in certain cultures, we don't speak to kids about money at home. And in fact, that's considered to be taboo. In fact, at my own home, we were not taught about money. Right? So here you are, you grow up, you adulting or you lifing, whatever it is, and you start earning your first salary. What do? You manage it either based on your childhood experiences, something you may have picked up from parents or caregivers, social media, influential people in your life, and that is how you start managing money, right? And the habits that you pick up in time become money patterns. And not all money patterns are beneficial. Some money patterns may be destructive, such as reckless spending, right? If this is something that you picked up from your best friend or so, and you are now incorporating their money management styles of reckless spending, this then becomes an emotive issue until you reach that stage where you have the awareness that, hey, listen, what's happening here is more a behavioral, emotional issue. And that is the reason why I may earn a fantastic salary, but before month end, I have nothing left because the issue here is my destructive financial habit being reckless spending. So that is the reason why you'd find a lot of people earn fantastic salaries, but they were never taught how to manage it, and they certainly unaware of how their emotions, thoughts, behaviors are impacting the way they manage money.
Wow. You know, there's something that you just said now that I really can't ignore. You're saying that a lot of us, and I will excuse our homes for now.
Sure.
But you said there's something a lot of us that we were not taught about money. And it's funny because we go to school. We go primary, we go high school, we go tertiary. And it's funny to sit and then we still say we were not taught about money, yet we went to school. Do you think there's something that has to change in our educational system? I don't know, maybe an added financial subject, curriculum, something that teaches people about money. Do you think that would solve the issue in a way?
So if that could happen, Peter, we'd certainly have more financially successful adults out there, right? So this is directly for the Minister of Education.
Yeah.
Right? And to say that when you are looking at the schooling curriculum, please don't make this something that's optional. Bring in money skills, money management, money literacy, financial literacy. Make it compulsory at school. Start off from grade 1.
Wow.
And coupled with that, I'd like to bring in the concept of entrepreneurship as well. Now, in a lot of countries, you'll find that subjects like money literacy, financial literacy, entrepreneurship starts very early, and kids are taught this at school. Now, why not South Africa? Imagine if this was taught in South Africa, how far ahead and how more successful people would be.
Sure. Wow. I want to know, Nikki, out of your clients and the people that you've worked with, what are the patterns that you see that these clients have when they start with you? What is it that I know you've touched on reckless spending? Are there any more that similar that you see where people are getting it wrong?
Sure, Peter. I mean, where do I begin? I could take up the entire podcast discussing all the money patterns, right? So I'm just going to focus on a few common money patterns and, where possible, also share examples. So the first one is something that you've mentioned earlier on, is that people earn well, but they don't know what's happening to their money, right? So that concept is actually managing money. They have money, but they don't know how to manage it because they don't know where the money is going or what's happening to the money. So that is one of the most common patterns that I find. And it's actually interesting. It's across all groups, from the perspective that it doesn't matter if you're an attorney or you're a doctor or you're someone who just has a grade 12 and you're working at a corporate or a small business, right? So what I'm trying to get here is, irrespective of your educational or academic background, most people have a similar pattern and a similar problem, which is actually managing money, right? The next common one is what we call money avoidance, right? Money avoidance is where, when I meet a client and I ask a client, so how much do you earn each month? Some people are able to tell me, others I say, I think it's an estimate of an X amount of money, right? So then my next question is, do you receive a salary slip? And they say yes. And then I ask, do you open your salary slip and view it? Are you aware of your benefits, what your net is, what your cost to company is? And that is where money avoidance comes in, Peter, because they don't even open their salary slips because they don't want to see what's in there, right? And that goes even deeper, because you find people with money avoidance are the people when each month they receive their bank statements with the password to open the bank statements. That goes into the archive file or delete. They don't ever open their bank accounts because they don't want to see what's happening there. And a similar trend is each month, like this morning, as I was waiting for the podcast, I got an email notification from COJ. That is my COJ statement, right?
Yeah.
And while I was waiting, I quickly opened to see what my COJ bill is for the month, because that's what I do. I don't avoid money. But such people with money avoidance issues, they wouldn't open a bill, whether it's COJ, whether it's their bond or whatever, because they do not want to know what the figures are. They'd rather pretend to be ignorant and just let monies go off their account, right? Because they do not want to face what they have or do not have, or what they've actually created.
I think that's where it is. I think most of us are scared to see the actual.
Scared
because
to see.
I feel like your bank statements reflect exactly how you behave with your money. It'll show you where you're wasting your money. And I think a lot of us don't want to see that.
They're not ready.
They
don't want to acknowledge.
Mr. D.
That's it. I mean, anything, right? Even something as simple as all the things you pay for on the Google Play Store or iOS, right? All the mindless things that you subscribe to, right? So money avoidance is a big one. I'll just quickly run through two other patterns. Another big one is actually money guilt, right? So you find a lot of people especially if they're most successful in their family, amongst their siblings, or within their peer group of friends, they actually feel guilty for earning what they do, right? Because others around them may not have as much as what they do, so they actually carry a great deal of money guilt. And that goes on deeper into aspects such as self-worth, deservability, etc. Because why is it that they have more than what others do while others are out there struggling?
I think in our black community that's what we call black tax.
Yes, that is what we call black tax. That's actually quite true. So that's a good example of black tax. Maybe let me use that black tax as an opening to the next pattern, being overgiving. That is why you find a lot of people out there who overgive, right? Black tax already brings in that silent expectation that you need to give when you have, right? And that's the reason why you find a lot of people end up overgiving.
And not just only overgiving, some end up in difficult financial situations because they carry the weight and all of that.
They overextend themselves financially, whether it's taking out student loans for siblings, whether it's taking on credit card debt, whether it's buying vehicles for family members, etc. Those are some examples how people overextend themselves by overgiving.
Sure. Now, Nikki, tell me, we've been talking about money coaching, but what exactly is money coaching, and how different it is from me seeing a financial advisor or a therapist for that matter?
Sure. So, Peter, money coaching is very specialized. Money coaching bridges the gap between the technical and the cognitive behavioral sides of money and finance. So when you work with a money coach like myself, all we focus on is your hardwired money patterns, your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, and how all of this impacts your relationship with money and how you manage money. Now, when you work with a financial advisor or a certified financial advisor, they are mandated to give you advice. You go to them with a money problem and they will give you advice around the problem. So they tell you what to do, but they don't tell you how to deal with the emotions around what to do. A therapist generally works with clients with trauma, clients who have emotional issues. They can they can prescribe meds, etc. So it's more about talk therapy, speaking it out, right? But they don't give you the tools required to shift the triggers that are causing the behavior.
And what I did a bit of my research here, and I want you to tell me about what is this the 8 money archetypes. Did I say it correct?
You said it correctly. Okay. So the money archetypes comes from the early works of Carl Jung. And money archetypes very easily put are money personalities, which have their own money traits, characters, personalities, etc. So when we work with clients, right, instead of saying, Peter, you are a spender, we will say to you, Peter, you identify most closely to the fool archetype, right? So that is how it works. So the archetypes for money coaching is actually derived by Miss Deborah Price, the founder of the Money Coaching Institute. And she's put together these 8 different archetypes and a money quiz. So when I work with clients, I would send you the link to the money quiz. You'll complete the quiz, and based on the outcome of your results, I will be able to tell which archetypes are most dominant within your money story and which archetypes are dominant, but they actually not beneficial to your money story, and give you techniques and tools to actually reduce these archetypes and actually start shifting them to more positive archetypes. So the archetypes that we have, let me quickly try and run through everything so I don't forget anything. So we've got the warrior, the magician, the creator artist, the martyr, the fool, the innocent, the tyrant, and the victim.
Sure. I wish I had my notebook. Yeah, and I think I'm gonna steal your notes after this episode.
Not a problem.
Because I think I need that. But I heard you mention this, the warrior. The word just pulled me. What happens there?
And rightfully so, it should. Right?
Yeah.
So the warrior archetype is one of the two archetypes that everyone should aspire to have, right? Or to become. So the warrior archetype is actually self-explanatory. And I'm going to give you an example to show you the difference between the warrior archetype and perhaps the victim archetype, right? So sometimes when I work with clients, within the first few minutes, without them having to complete the money quiz, because I have the experience I do, I'll immediately be able to almost pinpoint their money archetype, right? And when they complete the quiz, the quiz will just support what I already picked up. Now, if we look at an example where I'm meeting with a new client, I hear them speak for a few minutes, and if I pick up this particular client is a victim archetype. So what's a victim archetype? A victim archetype is the archetype where a person always blames everyone else. Oh, I don't have enough money because I don't have a good job, because government does not create opportunities, and I can't get a better job because I don't have a university qualification, because my parents could not afford to send me to university and I was denied a bursary. So this is why I am where I am, and I earn what I have, right? Or I earn what I do. So this, you just can hear, is a victim archetype. Now, when working with that particular archetype, I very gently probe and make that person see that they are actually a victim. They have characteristics associated to the victim archetype, right? I'm not calling them a victim straight up. I'm saying you relate to the victim archetype. So it's reframing, and it's more softer approach. And I help the client find ways to help them start shifting from the victim archetype to the warrior archetype. So what's the warrior archetype? The warrior archetype is a person who takes self-accountability.
Okay.
Whether they have money or not, it's not anyone else's problem. It's their own. Right? A warrior archetype is a person who can literally take a piece of stone and turn it into gold, right? It's a person who's driven, who's ambitious, who find ways to make money and create money opportunities. A warrior is exactly that. You know, if you look at these movies, a person with armor, anything, any sword, any gun, whatever you aim at this warrior, it's just going to bounce off, right? Because not to say that a warrior may not go through tough times. A warrior will fall down, but they will pick themselves up. A warrior is very empowered in their mindset when it comes to money matters. A warrior is a type of person who can make money today, and because of market volatility or macroeconomic factors, etc., they could lose their business and go insolvent today. Tomorrow, they will bounce back and in a few months build up a business that's even more successful than what they had before. It's a mindset.
Yeah. And I think that is very true. I think you articulated that very well. I fully agree with that. I think financial... I don't know how to put it, you being honest with where you are financially, I think that's the first step.
That's definitely the first step.
To unlocking the success. And I think that's what we mentioned earlier on, that we're too scared to even go through our bank statements because they will truly reflect who we are in terms of our money behavior. Now, I have this interesting question that I want to ask you. Now, you work with businesses, you work with individuals, you work with couples as well. how does now money affect these brackets, especially couples?
Okay, so I'll briefly take you through it, right?
Yeah.
So as individuals, as we've mentioned earlier on, we're not taught about money at school, university, or even at home, right?
Yes.
So we grow up and we start creating our own habits or self-actualizing them, etc., right? So when we meet a potential partner and we start dating, etc., these are two different people coming from two different backgrounds. They would raise very differently. And in some cases, it may be people from different cultures, different race groups, etc. And now you're coming together as a couple, right? And money is something that always impacts the relationship, right? And here you are with two different viewpoints on money. And now you've got to work together. And this is the main reason for conflict, because you've both got different ways, thoughts, emotions, and behaviors around what money means to you, right? So that is where I come in as a money coach, because I'd work with each person within the couple individually to help them understand and translate what their hardwired money patterns are, what their thoughts, emotions, behaviors around money is, right? Now I work with each person individually and then I bring them together as a couple. And then from a space of non-judgment, I will actually explain to them what each person's money story is. So they have a better understanding of where the other person is coming from.
Sure.
And then jointly, we start recreating their new money story from a space of non-judgment and a space of love and forgiveness.
Yeah. Nikki, do you think it's important for couples to, before we even sign up for this dating contract, me and you, do you think it's very crucial for me to understand your financial behavior, how is your relationship with money, and you understanding my relationship with money before we even think, or do you think that's what we need to implement?
I think that would be absolutely fantastic. So I'm just going to
We
go
won't have
around
couples.
and touch on a few different
Yeah.
things, right? I do know in a lot of religions or cultures, before marriage, couples counseling is very important. And within couples counseling, they do touch on money and finance.
Yeah.
But what I've heard is that it's pretty basic. It's just
Yeah.
things like having a budget, a joint account, etc. And from what I hear, it's not enough for a couple to then move into a committed relationship or marriage, etc., and have a strong foundation around what money means to each of them individually or as a couple, right? So let's make this fun and exciting, right? So, when you meet someone and you're keen and eventually you score that first date, right?
Yeah.
So you off to lunch or dinner, etc. Great conversation, great food, great drinks, whatever, and the bill comes, right? I always notice, right? So it depends, if this is a date where there's a male and a female now, right? No gender biases or preferences or whatever here. And then the server brings the bill and they'll always give it to the gentleman, right?
Always. Why is that? Why is that? I need to ask them, why is that?
Right? So they'll give it to the gentleman and one of two things is going to happen now, right? This is your first date, right? So the guy will either pick it up and pay the entire bill, or alternatively, the lady may say, the lady will sit there not doing anything, expecting the gentleman to pay, or the lady may say, can I contribute something towards the bill, right? Or maybe the guy it may not appear to be chivalrous and actually say, hey, Nikki, can we split the bill, right? Any of those scenarios can happen. But the most common one, because this is your first date and you're trying to impress the person, the guy will pick up the bill. And Peter, listeners out there, let me tell you, that becomes this trend for the rest of the relationship. Even when they move on, they become serious, they engage, they married, etc. That is one of the biggest issues I work with couples. And when we trace back where it comes from the first date. And the expectations were even though they were silent and unspoken, it was already set on the first date.
But don't you also think that people are just also the issue of people being wired to this belief that men are providers? Because you see what you just said, the waiter will bring the bill not to you, it'll come straight to me as the man on the table. I think it starts there. The belief that men are providers, I think that's where it starts. Wow. Okay, this is a topic for another day.
But see, Peter, that already becomes the norm, right? And as you start dating now, a week has gone by, a month or 2 months, that would be the opportune time, linked to your question, sorry we went around it, is to then start speaking about finances, and say like, listen, going forward, can we split the bill or whatever, and especially when it comes to more important matters where people decide, let's move in together, who's paying the bond, who's paying the rent, those type of discussions, believe it or not, don't even happen. They're unspoken. In my world, in money coaching, we call it financial agreements. And 99.9% of couples out there do not have financial agreements in place. It's unspoken. It's silent. It's assumed. And then they sit with me and I ask questions and then they say, I just assumed that he'd do it, or I assumed she'd do it, or assumptions are made because one person earns more than the other. And it's not uncommon to find that as the relationship evolves, like if you have a gentleman and a lady, she may tend to start earning more, yet the guy is stuck with all the bills because that was the expectation. And on the back end, he's building resentment. He comes to me and he says to me, Nikki, I can't handle this financial stress anymore. She earns more. I'm the one sitting with all the bills. And I say to him, why are you communicating this to me? Have you communicated this to her? No, I don't know how to communicate it to her. I need you. Now, I'm certainly not going to be his mouthpiece, right? But therein begins our journey of money coaching.
Sure. We need to do something about that. This has to change. Now, take me through what does a typical money coaching journey with Imali coaching looks like from start to finish?
Okay. So it differs depending on whether you're an individual, a couple, or a business owner, right? But what's common amongst all three areas is the use of archetypes, which we've briefly discussed.
Yep.
But basically, what we use is what we call a core process, which is a step-by-step methodology that I've been trained on by the founder of the Money Coaching Institute, Ms. Deborah Price. So the core process takes a period of between 4 to 6 to 8 weeks. And during this time period, we will help you identify and uncover what your hardwired money thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and patterns are. We'll be able to get to the origin of these patterns, whether it comes from parents, caregivers, influential people in your life, or whether it's self-actualized, right? We'll also work with money archetypes to give you an idea in terms of which archetypes you most identify with. Very big in the work that we do around money coaching is to gauge whether people understand what their life purpose is and whether they're actually living their life purpose or they've discovered it. So we incorporate that within our work. And when we initially start working with clients, we ask them to list a minimum of 3 problems that they need to resolve around the money throughout the money coaching process or as a result of the process. And by the end of the core process and through the work we do during these 4 to 6 weeks, etc., we will be able to give them the solution as to why they're going through what they're going through. We end off the core process by creating creating a personalized toolbox with solutions, recommendations, exercises, a whole lot of tools which you can now start utilizing to start helping you shift your behavior. So it takes anything between 21 to 66 days before a habit can start changing, right? Or for any behavior, for any behavioral changes to happen. So that is why it's very important to utilize all the tools within the toolbox to ensure you get everlasting change. Now, a lot of clients, once we're done with the core process, they'll say to me, Nikki, listen, I still need your support for another 2 or 3 months as an accountability partner to check my progress. So then we continue working with clients. But a lot of clients, because the whole idea is money coaching is done in such a way to empower clients you coach, they should be equipped with their toolbox to be able to manage on their own and successfully shift and change their behavior.
Wow. And you've created a digital learning course for individuals and businesses. Is there a gap you are trying to fix with these courses?
Most definitely. The gap that I was trying to fix there, Peter, is that most financial literacy courses out there do not cover the cognitive behavioral sides of money. So the gap that my digital courses fill is cognitive behavioral financial literacy.
And tell me about Imali for you and Imali for business.
Peter, that is my entire life's work, those 2 courses. It's a culmination of my life's work, my life's purpose, and my gift to the country and people, right? So what I've done with these particular courses is, let me start with individuals first, right? Because of my experience and years of working with either individuals or business owners, what I've looked at, I've listed all the money problems that individuals struggle with. So I've created the course in such a way whereby we first kick off with the cognitive behavioral side of money, because that is our differentiator, right? So firstly, I introduce that, and I actually help people understand how their emotions actually impact the way they manage money. So that is the first module. It's made up of several sub-modules, exercises, a whole lot of things. Once you complete that, you'd be in a new space where you're able to rewrite your money story from a space of empowerment. So wherever you were prior to that module, by the end of the module, light bulbs would start going off. You have a better understanding of one client paraphrased it, and he said to me, Nikki, now I have a better understanding of my mara why I do what I do, right? Then we move on to the second module, and this is where I list all the different challenges and struggles that people have around money. And I've developed that into a module which takes people through all of that. And the final module is the best one ever, because the final module is where it brings together the first 2 modules, and I actually empower clients to actually create their own financial plan. So by doing this, they need not go to a financial advisor. They can do this by themselves. They will create a plan tailor-made to their personal circumstances. So in a nutshell, the course will take you on a journey of inner growth, personal development, self-discovery, and it will take you to the end whereby you will be able to now move on to a more sustainable, financially secure future with all the tools that I give you throughout the modules.
Oh yes, that's the important one, because I wanted to ask, do these courses come with like tools to support
lots of tools,
the learners,
exercises, reflective journal apps, apps such as budgeting apps. It's jam-packed with tools. The way we've set it up on the learner management system is you'll have one video. You cannot go past this video until you do all your exercises, whatever's required. You send it through to me and the team, and only if we're happy with the response do we unlock your next video or module, etc. And if I feel, or the team feels, that you've just done this to tick a box, sorry for you, we're sending it back.
Tell me, what's the most unique patterns you think South African have when it comes to money?
So we've touched on this briefly, right? So I think the most unique pattern that South Africans have is actually this whole pattern of poor financial boundaries. So what do I mean about that, right? As we all know, South Africa is unique because of our history and everything that's happened in the past in terms of apartheid, etc., and how it's impacted our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, right? So now, post-democracy, many years later, we are now in a different situation where we have the opportunity to earn more than perhaps our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, etc., right? Now, when we find ourselves in this particular situation, our money is not necessarily our own. In most cultures, your salary is the family salary.
Everyone.
Right? And whatever you earn will go to every single person, not only in your immediate family, but, we come from cultures where our cousins are our sisters and brothers too. Our aunts and uncles are our moms and dads, right? So in effect, that one salary goes to immediate and extended family, right? And that salary's got to work, right? And that is where we find that unique pattern is that pattern of poor financial boundaries. Because the minute you stand up and you say, sorry, I'm not giving this to you, or I can only afford to give 10,000 Rand to the family for the month. How does the family judge you, right? How do they criticize you, right? What are all the things that actually come with standing up for yourself? Because that is forbidden. How dare you put boundaries in place and put a limit and say, sorry, I'm only giving you 10,000 and I can't give you more. That is unheard of, right? Because this is where black tax comes from. It's that silent, unspoken expectation that you should give everything you have. But who's the one working?
Yeah.
Who's giving their time, their energy, their mental strength, physical strength, etc. Right?
But I think, Nikki, that has to change.
Most definitely.
I think people need to find strength to say no, and especially if it comes at your cost. I think it has to change. I'm not in agreement with this because a lot of people fall into huge financial strains because of this. I personally think it has to change. I definitely think it has to change.
So, Peter, why it has to change is because if you look at it from a different perspective, you are the enabler. You are enabling your family. You are enabling those siblings who are sitting at home, Netflixing, drinking and ordering from Uber Eats using your salary. Where do they have the motivation to go and find a job? What's going to motivate them? Nothing, right? Because they've got shelter, they've got food, they've got a Netflix subscription. You're certainly paying for their Wi-Fi, right? What's motivating them to get jobs?
Yeah, I've said this before that being comfortable is the most terrible thing that can ever happen to someone, because out of that comfort there's no motivation, there's nothing. Now tell me, Nikki, what is the biggest transformation you've seen, especially with one of your clients? You've seen them transform from how they behave with money, and probably if they still with you.
Okay, I know I'm going to say this and I may come across as egotistical and arrogant, so I apologize. The reality is, Peter, when most people work with me already from the first session, they start shifting, right? But let me get back to your question. So there was a particular gentleman that I met or who was referred to me very early when I started the coaching practice. I had worked with one of his cousins who saw a great deal of shift change and success by going through the money coaching process. So she referred her cousin, but because of where he was in terms of his financial circumstances, his income was very erratic, so he wasn't really able to pay me. And I said to him, listen, I'll take you on as a pro bono case, but as you start making money, I will not know, you will know, and then I will place the fear of God into you, and you will know that you will have to pay me when you make money.
I like the fact that you incorporate God there.
So that's what we did, and we kicked off the process. So when I started with him, and we actually didn't touch on my business digital courses, and we'll touch on that later, hopefully before we end. So as a business owner, because he hadn't dealt with his personal money issues, he took his personal money issues into the business. And that was actually beginning to impact his business. And that was why he always found himself in a cycle of erratic income. He'd have money this week, he'd have no money for 3 weeks. And that was his story. And actually, it's not an uncommon story amongst a lot of business owners in South Africa. So took him through the core process. We did a lot of work for a period of about 2 months, but already during that time period, he had already started shifting, started actually seeing where the problems were, right? Fast forward, early this year, I was actually still on holidays, and he messaged me and he said to me, Nikki, I see you've got an out of office. When are you coming back? I need to set up an appointment. But subsequently, he did pay me for the money coaching, might I add. So that's important to note when he did get money. So he sets up an appointment and he comes through. So over the last 3 to 4 years, he's been able to set up 4 alternate businesses, all of which are doing very well. And we sit, we chat, he brings me up to speed in terms of all the things he's doing, and everything sounds fantastic. He's doing really well. I'm sitting there, a proud coach, because this is a result of both our work together. I'm not the only one who could take credit for this, right? And then he says to me, Nikki, I've got a new problem, and this is why I need help. So I asked him, what is the new problem? And he said to me, now my new problem is I'm so afraid of losing all the money that I've made. And I firstly had a little laugh, but not in a disrespectful way. And I said to him, that's the best life problem to have.
I was
not
about to
losing
say
your
that.
money, right?
Yeah.
So now we're currently working with me, helping him to actually understand the root of that fear and how to overcome that, right? So what I'm trying to get at in summary is that wherever you are in terms of your life journey, and when you start the money coaching journey, it is always going to be an ongoing journey. Because as you start addressing your patterns and you start shifting them, more and more patterns are going to keep on coming as you start transforming and growing and changing in life. Because the patterns and the problems that he came to me with now is far different to what he was dealing with 4 years ago. So in a nutshell, it's always going to be an ongoing journey.
That's a beautiful testimony of growth. That's what I appreciate about that. There is growth, and he can clearly see the problems he had before you. They're so different with the problem. He has money problems now.
Exactly. And here's the thing, a lot of people are under the misconception that you only work with the money coach if you don't have money or you're struggling with money. It's not that. A lot of my clients are actually clients who have money, and their issues are things like this: losing money, or the fact that they have money, but they're so afraid to actually spend their money. They hoard their money. And the whole goal of money coaching is to actually empower clients to have a balanced relationship with money.
Wow, that's beautiful. Tell me, Nick, because I want to liberate, I'm trying to liberate people, especially financially wise, so that they can have the knowledge and the wisdom they need. How would you put it? How important it is, especially for the disadvantaged communities? How important is money coaching for that specific group?
I'd say money coaching is imperative, but I'm almost going to contradict myself here and actually say that they need to begin with financial literacy first, right? And they need a combination of both financial literacy as well as money coaching. Because money coaching is first going to help them unearth what their thoughts, behaviors, emotions are around money. Because if they are coming from a disadvantaged background, big themes like scarcity, deservability, etc., are going to form big themes, right? So they're first going to have to work through the behavioral issues. And once they move past that, then financial literacy becomes very big, because that empowers and equips them with the knowledge that they need for the future to become successful.
And what does a financially healed South Africa looks like to you?
So a financially healed South Africa for me is an equal South Africa, right? Where we've forgiven the past and we no longer feel a sense of entitlement because of the transformation, etc., which had come about to address issues of the past. So for me, the future South Africa would be a South Africa that's balanced in terms of thinking around money and their consciousness. It's a South Africa where people are, not only do they have opportunities available to them to advance their economic growth and success, but also a South Africa where people are actually empowered to create their own financial success in the form of businesses, and in doing so, create opportunities for other people out there. So for me, a future South Africa is one where it's fair, equitable, where there's a high level of consciousness around creating opportunities for themselves and for others, and most importantly, having a balanced, healthy relationship with money and managing finances.
I like that you said that. Now, if someone is watching this and they earn a salary and they feel completely lost with money, what would you say is the first step they need to take?
I'll give you two solutions, right? Both depending on where a person is at, maybe easy or maybe difficult, right? But the first one is utilize a budgeting app, right? A lot of people out there think that budgeting is so simple, and why should they do it? Really, look at me. I'm a qualified engineer. Do you think I don't know how to budget? Actually, I actually do think you don't know how to budget, because I'm looking at your financial situation, right? So I'd say utilize a budgeting app. Start tracking everything that's coming in and going out, and you'll actually be shocked by what's happening, right? That would be the first easiest way, right? But it takes discipline, because each day you need to put in what's coming in and what's going out, right? Some banks do have budgeting apps that are attached to the banking app, etc. So that's something that you can look at. Or there's a lot of other free budgeting apps. You can just DM me. I'll share that with you. And also, we do have budgeting apps that we've created at our wealth management company, Opulentus Wealth, that we can share with you. So the first one would be budgeting. For those people who are very old-fashioned and prefer pen and paper, you can also write down what comes in and goes out on a daily basis, right? But let me stress that this should be done over a period of minimum 1 to 3 months, because this is going to start giving you an idea in terms of what your trends are. And even if you'd come to a person like myself with this intel, I'll immediately, without asking questions, be able to pick up the trends, right? The other one, which may or may not be easy for others, so if you like writing, you can buy a new journal or notebook, or if you prefer typing out, you can use notes on your phone, right? So what you do is you would observe how you react every time there's a money interaction or a money event. What do I mean by that? So if you you drive to work, you get to work, and you go to the Seattle coffee shop to purchase a coffee. I want you to record that event, purchasing coffee at Seattle. But I also want you to record what feelings and emotions went through you when you buy that coffee, right? So for some people, it may be, I hope and pray my card's not going to decline and I can afford this coffee, right? For other people, they may be wondering, what's my points or rewards that I can actually cash in to get a free coffee?
Yeah.
Or for other people, it's just, it's another coffee for the day. It's a small amount, 50, 60 rands, whatever. It doesn't impact, right? So whatever you're going through, you write this down. Then, for example, later in the day, you go to the canteen and you buy lunch. Once again, you jot down how you're feeling. So let me give you an example. You may have walked around the canteen, you saw a particular meal, and that meal was 250 rands, and you saw something else for 100 rands, and you decided to go with a 100 rand option, right? What made you go with the 100 rand option? Is it because you're budgeting, or do you only allocate yourself an X amount of money for canteen spend for the day, right? So those are two examples. And as you go along your day, so later you may get into your car, you on your way home, you stop at the shops, you stop into a Checkers, a Pick and Pay, or Woolies, you buy a few items. Now, are these items on your shopping list? Are they budgeted for? Or did you just walk around, see those Easter eggs on display, and just pick up every single Easter egg and put it in your basket and go and check out, right? So whatever event happens, you either write it down or you type it out on your phone. And here again, I look for minimum a month's worth of data, right? And that will enable me to start picking up trends. And hey, you don't even need me. You can go back a month later and you start reading your notes, and you are going to start seeing your triggers, right? Like a big trigger for a lot of people is whenever they go to the pay point is that they start experiencing money anxiety, right? Because they hope and pray they have enough money to pay for what they have, right? I had a situation a few months ago where I was at a particular store. The gentleman in front of me was paying for goods, and it broke my heart. He literally took out notes and cents and he put it on the counter to pay for a few food items, and he didn't have enough to pay for it. And he stood there so embarrassed when the cashier said, "You don't have enough." And I just stepped in and I said, "Please don't worry. Put it on my bill," And the guy was so thankful, but you can see it impacted his dignity.
God bless you.
So it's not uncommon. We are living in economic times that are challenging. We have a high unemployment rate. Earlier on, I mentioned COVID. It's 6 years post-COVID. But how many people have actually financially recovered from COVID? Nobody speaks about that. But I see it on a daily basis because of the work that I do. Times are tough out there.
Sure. Nikki, tell me, how do people get in touch with you? How do people get in touch with Imali Coaching, and how do they get started with you if they want to walk this journey?
Sure. So the easiest way would be just Google Imali Coaching. You'll pick up our website, or the website is www.imalicoaching.com. Or alternatively, find us on social media, LinkedIn, or our social media handles are at Imali Coaching. So it's a capital I for Imali and a capital C for coaching. And just reach out to us. A starting point for a lot of clients would be our digital courses. We've made this... We've set it at a price point that may be a bit affordable to clients. We also offer a few different payment options to make it affordable. And that is the starting point, because once you go through the course, even though it's self-paced, it makes it easier when you come to me. Because then when you come to me, instead of going through the core process for 6 to 8 sessions and charging you for that, all we have is 1 or 2 sessions because you've already done all the groundwork within the digital courses.
Oh, do you mind dropping your business number or a number where someone, because I know some people would just want to call you immediately and speak to you.
Most definitely. So I'll just share my mobile number. That's the easiest to get hold of me, either on voice or WhatsApp. 082-940-4674.
And I just want to say, guys, I know she's beautiful. Can we just stick to business?
Thanks for that, Peter.
Please. Nikki, thank you so much. I cannot even thank you enough for sharing this information, this powerful insight with us today. I definitely learned a lot, and I think this was a very valuable conversation, which I feel like needs at least 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours of us just sitting and talking about this. But I appreciate you so much for coming through and being part of the family. Thank you so much. And to you, our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If there's anything that resonated with you in this powerful conversation with Nikki, please do like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you know the next time we upload an episode. And all her details will be on the description below. Please do give her a shout. I think this will help a lot, and I know that everyone wants to be in a good financial standing. So here's an opportunity. Here's Nikki to the rescue. I will definitely have a private conversation with her. So until next time, guys, this is Success Unscripted with Peter Manjate. Thank you. Nikki, thank you so much.
Peter, thank you so much for having me. Listeners out there, it really doesn't matter where you are in terms of your money story. There's always an opportunity to rewrite it from a space of forgiveness and empowerment.
There you have it. Beautiful.